Hey guys, welcome back to another video. We are doing a balayage tutorial today on my beautiful client Hannah. This is what we're starting with. This is her natural, the root is her natural base. She's a natural ashy level 7. I swear she's a unicorn. She's got a gorgeous color, and normally we actually don't color her hair, but she's getting married in September, so we are looking to just kind of add in some like natural brightness. So first time I colored her hair, I did a very dimensional partial balayage, and I used clay lightener to give the most subtle lift possible, just to kind of, you know, help her get used to having color back in her hair. She hasn't colored it in years. She loved it. We're just adding a little bit more. So with what she wanted to do and with what I knew we needed to do to get to that look, I decided to do a half instead of a partial this time. And then I'm also implementing both foils and freehand painting. So instead of just the freehand painting, I'm doing a mix of both this time. We want very natural, very dimensional highlights skimmed throughout, like the root and mids of her hair. And then her ends, she does want to be, we didn't make them all solid blonde, but we did add in quite a bit more blonde. So that's kind of how I am implementing both techniques today. I'm doing a Mohawk, and then I'm doing 2 sides. The Mohawk was along her natural part, which is pretty much just slightly off center. And then in the back, I am doing I'm just kind of doing a little bit of a box. With where I kind of make my section in the back, I kind of I go from like the apex to kind of where the head starts to curve a little bit. That's kind of like my stopping point, if you will, and kind of where the head protrudes, where it starts to protrude the most at, is kind of where I know to stop. And then from that protruding point all the way down to the nape is left out, except for I do a few highlights underneath as well. So this technique I'm going to be showing you guys, it's going to be going over lots of placement and kind of how to get that very dimensional yet effective kind of color. That's kind of what we're doing today.
See, I'm popping all of this good shit. Big flex, my swole up. Double cup and I'm pulled up. Niggas hating like hold up. What's the problem? I'm pulled up. Big flex, my swole up. Hard body, they fold.
So we're starting off in the back, and I'm going to be taking pretty fine sections. Again, we're not doing any bold placement. We're making this very, very soft, very dimensional. So we don't need a very large section for that. And along that section, I'm going to do 1 soft tease, and then I kind of just do a few like touch-ups kind of right there, as you guys saw. And then I don't know if you guys caught it, but I actually went down probably around like 5 to 6 inches down and teased all the way up to the root. So that kind of helps to make sure that we are encouraging a lot of depth to still be in our foil when we go to detangle that. If I'm doing just a slightly rooted blonde, a lot of times I'll only tease like that first inch, maybe 2 inches in the back and like 1 inch in the front. But again, since we are looking to really just enhance her natural color and keep it very, very rooty, that's why I go down probably around like 6 inches or so. And then I do my traditional foliage kind of technique and placement and all of that too. And then in this next section that you guys are going to see, I'm actually going to leave probably around like 1 inch or so of leave out in between. Again, like I keep saying, to encourage dimension and depth, especially here in the back where, you know, we don't really necessarily need a whole ton of highlights anyway. Again, I'm going down around like 6 inches or so. I'm actually going to do this in slow-mo for you guys to kind of really see. Going down pretty low, and just 1 main tease, and then I just do a few baby touch-ups, a few baby teases, just to kind of get any hairs that are straggling down that didn't get all the way up. Kind of helps to touch those up without having to do 18 million teases. That's definitely my biggest tip, is to be pretty soft-handed with your tease. The main point of the tease is to add in that natural root and like kind of make the blend, if you will. So because of that, we don't need to do any intense teasing with that. It just makes your life a lot harder. And I've made that mistake in the past when I was a younger stylist of doing a ton of teases, and it doesn't necessarily change the look of it either. So again, just push those hairs out of the way. That's all you got to do. I also go in with like a medium tooth comb. I don't do a super fine tooth comb because there's no need. I feel like that just tangles the hair even more. So yeah, just keep those in mind. And I'm just kind of fast forwarding through these. The only thing I do differently is this topmost section I'm about to do. Just because that is right at the top, and I kind of figured just to kind of help to like add in a little bit of an extra shimmer, if you will. I don't leave any leave out. I just go in and I weave from here and tease from here as well. So there's not an inch of leave out like there was for my previous sections in the back. If I can just get it, I was gonna say if I can just get everything gripped. So as you guys can see, no leave out, just I'm teasing it right there. And this one I'm teasing around like closer to 3 inches instead. I figure that it would just kind of, again, give it a little bit of an extra shimmer. And it also helps to transition from the back to the front, because the front we're not going to leave, it's still going to be very rooty, but we're not going to leave it as rooty as the back. And it just kind of helps to encourage the fluidity and goes along with like the natural curvature of the head, since this is where the head is at like that more highest point around the apex. The highlights if she were to have natural highlights in her hair from the sun, it would naturally be up a little bit higher in this spot. So don't mind me, I'm sipping some chai while I'm voiceovering. And then you guys can kind of see too over here, sorry, she's like, we're really good friends too, so if you see us, like, I feel like I'm in this video, you're seeing both of us like talk with our hands a lot more. I try to edit as much of it out as I could, but yeah, you're gonna see a little bit of that. So moving on to the Mohawk, as you guys can kind of see, again, same fine sections, except I'm going closer to around like 3 inches down instead of closer to the 6. And but same weaving and everything, same technique for everything else. And then I am still leaving like some sections out, but instead of leaving like 1 inch out like I was in the back, I'm kind of going to more of like 1/2 inch. And then in the front, I'm going to kind of start leaving out a little bit more. But all of my sections here are finely baby lighted, weaved, whatever stitch, whatever term you like the best. Again, with what we're doing, it just helps to keep everything nice and soft. So moving on to the money piece, I am going along with her head shape and her growth pattern. So with how her hairline is laying, I'm just kind of going at more of like diagonals along that. I'm just kind of letting her hairline dictate how diagonal or how horizontal the section that I should do for that section. I am teasing a little bit. I'm only going around like like 1 inch or so down, again, for the same reasons as I was doing in the back. But to help to make it, we wanted it to be bolder in the front, but very natural. So I don't do anything too crazy. My first section that I did was a weave. This one is a very fine slice, but this is the only slice that I'm doing, and I'm doing everything else is going to be back-to-back weaves from there. I start off with teasing around a root or 1 inch for these first few sections, and then as I kind of work my way further from the hairline, I kind of start to do close to like 1.25 inches to like 1.5 inches. It's kind of how I do it, and I think that's kind of where I top off, is like that 1.5 inch, 2 inch mark for teasing. That kind of helps to encourage. I love me a good teardrop root. If you don't know what a teardrop root is, it's kind of where if you're looking at like the side, kind of, you envision like the side of the head of someone that has a balayage. It's where the money piece has the least amount of root, and then as you go further to the back and along the side, the root gets lower and lower and lower. And if you look at it from like the top of the head, kind of mimics a teardrop. So that's kind of what I'm doing, and as you guys can kind of see, as I'm working my way back, you see kind of more root getting added into that, and we're still teasing and doing the same amount of weaving and everything too. And then this section that kind of helps to break up the money piece and connects to the rest of the Mohawk is where I kind of start going back to like the 2 to 3 inches of back combing. And I just kind of go from there. And then the rest of this Mohawk is just me pretty much connecting the front to the back and kind of just still doing the same techniques that I was doing in the back too. So.
Hating on the pen, don't stop, shit ain't gon' feed you. I've been all on my grind, so why I need you. Baby girl, girl love my vibe and I like me too. No roof on my top and my babe see through. Hating on the pen, don't stop, shit ain't gon' feed.
Moving on to the back, I'm still doing the same teasing and weaving technique and pattern and everything. I'm just going to be going, you're going to see me going at more angles. I kind of just let the curvature of her head and her growth pattern dictate to me how angular or how vertical or how horizontal to make her sections. How I kind of dictate that too is if I'm not really sure, I don't have to do this as much now that I have, done this for a while, but when I wouldn't be sure, especially when I was starting out, I would pick up that section that I'm about to take and I would just kind of follow where I would kind of pull my hands out and kind of pull where is the hair naturally wanting to go. And I just kind of align my sections from there. And I maneuver my foil and my board to kind of go along with where her hair is, naturally falling at. And that helps me so much. It helps to minimize any loss of tension on the hair. And I feel like me pivoting and me placing my sections along where her hair is naturally falling at kind of just helps me to foil faster too. I'm not fighting with anything. And yeah, it just helps me the most. So along the sides is where I do the most of my detail work, and then as I work into the interior of the head, that's where you're gonna see me. I'm still doing detailed work, but that's kind of where you're gonna see me leaving out around like an inch of leave out for each section. So I'm not doing nearly as much work in the interior of the head. We don't have to. And again, if you are not, this is an important spot to not overpaint too. I have made the mistake before of overpainting, especially when we are looking to encourage dimension and depth. The sides and the back are very important to not overdo it. Again, everyone wants their front and that topmost section to be the brightest, and that is where you're going to put the most of your work in. So, do with that whatever you need to do, but just really, really be sure not to overdo it on the sides and the back. And then as you see me doing right here on this very topmost section, again, to encourage depth right there, I am just kind of tipping out that section, and I still put in a foil so it still gets that maximum brightness, but it didn't need to be all the way up. I kind of felt like that would just encourage the depth and encourage the brightness being more focused along the ends. So I'm doing the same thing pretty much here on this other side as you guys saw me doing on the previous side. You'll see me kind of do some of my sections to the side, like here, that are it's kind of going at an angle, and then the section I did previously is at a horizontal. And how that ends up factoring in is I kind of eventually, depending on the head shape, sometimes I end up kind of doing a natural bricklaying pattern. It just all has to do with whichever section's up next, and again, where is it falling at on the head. Just let it go down, either pull the hair out or let it kind of just naturally fall and see where it wants to fall at. And that's, again, how you can figure out where exactly to place your foil and how to place it. And that kind of just helps to make it the easiest. And again, this topmost section, we're just tipping it out. There's no need, again, to keep it nice and rooty, but keep the ends bright. Topmost section is just kind of tipped out then from there. All right, and now into the back we are doing, I just did a few baby lights along the back. Again, I kind of just went along her growth pattern for these, so they're just kind of at a slight angle. I do like to have most of my half highlights, unless if they either don't need it. Sometimes for like a 6-week appointment, if they're like a full highlight, they don't necessarily need the back touched up as much. But most of the time I do like to make sure the back is covered as well, because it kind of gives that, I kind of tell people like the back, like the half highlights are kind of like a full coverage effect for very dimensional blondes. So sometimes when you leave this underneath out, it can kind of create dark spots when she pulls all of her hair forward. And then again, when her hair is all the way up, since she's gonna be nice and blonde right from the front, if she wears her hair up in a ponytail or in a bun a lot, then the back, especially since again there's no color back here, it just made the most sense and made it the most fluid to just add a few. And yeah, I only did 4 in the back, and all the foil work now is all done. Now what you guys are going to see me do is I'm pulling out all of her leave out sections, and I'm not painting all of them, but I am going to be painting quite a few of them, and I'm just using the leftover of my lightener. Like I said, some of these top sections are already pre-lightened. Most of the sides though are not, because when I do my partials I pretty much just do that Mohawk section and that's about it. But yeah, so I'm just using, at this point I was using 30 volume anyway, so I'm just using some leftover 30 volume, and I'm just freehand painting all of these, and this is just going to help to brighten up all of, like, a lot of her ends, so that it has that effect again, like what I said earlier that she wanted, with very dimensional roots and pretty bright solid ends, or solid appearing ends, I guess I should say. So the lightener that I'm using too, I don't think I mentioned this earlier, so I am using Oligo Extra Blonde and Cool Toned Blonde. The only thing, so normally I mix them 50-50, but on her, since she was naturally a level 7, we didn't need a whole lot of, you know, lifting power. I actually did 2 scoops of Cool Toned Blonde and then just 1 scoop of the Extra Blonde. So it was more of like a 75% of my mixture was Cool Toned, and then 25% was Extra Blonde. First bowl I did 20, and then the second bowl I did 30. And here I am at the bowl pulling the foils. Since she is a level 7, she had to sit for maybe 20 minutes, especially since I did move up her last bowl up to 30. So yeah, I'm pulling out all of her foils here now. And then here at the bowl, I don't have to sit them all the way up when I'm doing a half to root them, because I'm kind of able to, most of that section, most of her head is kind of propped up at this point. So that's with how our bowls are laid out though. Everyone's bowls are different. You still might have to sit your client all the way up. You might not have to, but yeah, only for full highlights, I feel like, is when I have to sit my client all the way up. But anyway though, so for my root, we are doing Oligo Calura Gloss, of course, and I'm doing 7N, 7A, with a dash of 8NB just to fill it a little bit. Sometimes when I do too ashy of a root, it kind of makes it a little bit more blue tone, and I did not want that. But since she is naturally a little bit of an ashier blonde, especially on her base, that's why I did that. I did 30 grams total of color and then 30 grams of developer. It was the cream developer, and I did 15 grams of 7N, I did 10 grams of 7A, and I did 5 grams of 8MB, so literally just a little bit. And as you guys can kind of see, I'm just bringing that down like 2 inches or so. Since we did a very rooty color on her, I didn't necessarily want to drag the root all the way down to where her highlight, like the base of her highlights were. Kind of felt like that would just kind of bring it down a little too low, but this is just going to soften kind of right where those highlights started. That's all I really needed to do. And then for her ends toner, I did, again, this was Oligo Calura Gloss, and I did 10 AI, 9 GI, and clear. So that's interesting. I don't really use clear a lot. I honestly only use it a very small handful of times. And yeah, because on her, since she pretty much lifted to that perfect, super nice, bright blonde, I always debate on even toning her because she really barely needs it, but I just kind of like to cool it down just a little bit. But I didn't want to we didn't want to be like bright white, more of like a natural bright white blonde. So that's kind of why I did a 10 AI, so the 10 peaks, that's the lightest pearl that they have. And then the 9 GI kind of helps to add in that natural brightness in with it, since that's the ashy gold. But the clear is kind of what helps to dilute it. And here it is all done. It is so pretty. Even when I was editing it, I was like, this just is so gorgeous. And her hair is just so easy to do too. It's just, it works with me. I love it. Super gorgeous. As you guys can kind of see here too, her root is a lot softer now, but we definitely did not overdo it, and definitely did not take away from her gorgeous root color. So I hope you guys enjoy. I hope you guys learned something new. Be sure to give this video a like and make sure you subscribe before you leave. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.